In the United States, Senate Republicans have narrowly passed President Donald Trump's signature spending bill. Vice President JD Vance cast the deciding vote after a 50-50 tie following more than 24 hours of heated debate. Now, the bill offers billions of dollars in tax cuts and also scales back several social programs. The Congressional Budget Office says the so-called Big Beautiful Bill would add over $3 trillion to the U.S. deficit over the next decade. The legislation will now head back to the lower house, where it still faces opposition.
Mr. Lee.
For more, I can now speak to DW reporter Stephen Beardsley. So Trump is one step closer to his signature legislation. It was a nail-biter, and it passed by the narrowest of margin. Why is there so much unease with that so-called Big Beautiful Bill?
Because, Nicole, it's even bigger than it was when it first started. So you're right, it just squeezed out of the Senate with one vote, right? And that was the vice president's vote. It goes back much more expensive than it was to begin with. $3.3 trillion in new U.S. debt over 10 years. Now, it goes back to the House, where the original version was passed with $2.5 trillion in debt over 10 years. There, it also passed by one vote, and fiscal conservatives warned that they would not pass anything that added more debt than $2.5 trillion. So we're going to have to see if they're going to put their money where their mouths are in this point. On that merit alone, it should fail in the House, based on what they've said. And then when you add those social cuts, which have put a lot of congressmen at unease, it looks like it's going to be really perilous. However, we know that Trump has a hold on many of these congresspeople in the sense that he is threatening to run to support their opponents, essentially, in the upcoming races. The House, they're more sensitive to that. They have 2-year terms. They're coming up for re-election in the midterm, and many of them are looking at that and knowing that Trump is going to full-out volley against them if they oppose this bill. So that's the tension that we're looking at.
Yeah. What we're seeing in the headlines is tax cuts for wealthy families, less health care for poor people, mass deportations. Is that how we should be looking at this bill?
So the tax cuts, they don't benefit exclusively the rich, but they definitely are skewed towards wealthier households, and the richer ones are going to do much better. It's a regressive tax cut. That means the better off you are, the better you're going to do under this tax measure. Now, the Republicans point to it and they say, look, this has been a tax cut that's been in place for the last 7 years. Trump, his first term, that's when he put it in place. And so if we don't extend it, then essentially everyone's getting a tax hike. That may be true from the semantics, but many people are experiencing this in different ways. And many households, especially lower-income households, aren't really going to notice much of a difference, whereas it's going to be wealthier households who might complain. So a lot of people are saying alone that that's unfair. As far as the social cuts, it's true. I mean, people are going to lose health insurance, and that's one of the big concerns facing many congresspeople as they're looking at this, especially from poor districts. Medicaid is health insurance for poor, and that program has been expanded year after year, especially as past presidencies have expanded more subsidized insurance for poor households. You're looking at $1 trillion in cuts to Medicaid. That's the most ever for a program that's become more and more popular. So something is going to have to give here. There's going to be a work requirement that requires people to show that they're working to receive Medicaid. That's designed to kick people off the rolls. There's going to be a lot of difficulty proving that you've met the requirements of that bill. They know that people are going to lose health insurance through that, and that's how they're going to save money. So yes, it's going to benefit wealthy households, and it's going to hurt those who need health insurance.
The debate over this bill has also reignited the feud between Donald Trump and his former ally, Elon Musk. How closely are you going to be watching where that goes?
Obviously, we're going to be watching it closely. You know, Tesla took a hit in terms of share price because of this. It has a lot that it could lose. Obviously, it's losing certain electric, sales incentives for its cars. They're going to be phased out. That's one concern. Musk says he's concerned over the size of this bill, the cost of it. Tesla is also in a difficult position in that it's just launched these kind of robo-taxi trials in Austin, Texas. It requires a lot of state and federal regulations to be in place. And so this looming threat of using the levers of the government against him, that's problematic for his company. It's problematic for business in the U.S. and for Americans in a much broader way, that a president could use these levers to affect an individual person or business.
Yeah. Stephen Beardsley, thank you so much.